So hey guys, and welcome to this third episode of the TDS Repair series. So today we're going to service two things, the Sram X01 Derailleur and the Sram X01 Cassette. We're also going to do a chain check and we're going to remove the chain. So if you want to clean your chain, I've actually done it in the last video. So yeah, if you want to clean it, just click up here. So why would you want to service your derailleur is actually because of the junky wheels. Those wheels, those little tiny wheels that conduct the whole chain, they often get really dirty, and inside there are bearings that you gotta clean and change the grease. But I do know that on some models there are no bearings inside, there are some bushings which you just gotta take off and grease. But the bearings, it's a little more complicated, and that's why I'm gonna do a video on it, and it's not the only reason. You also gotta grease some little pivots that I'm gonna show you later. So yeah, we're gonna do all of this in this video. So yeah, just let's get started. So here you're gonna need a T25 Torx wrench, a 6mm Allen key, but that's for my rear wheel. You might have another sort of Allen key. You're also gonna need a 5mm Allen key and a 3mm Allen key. You're also gonna need this chain tool, this chain checker tool. So for the cassette, you're gonna need this special cassette tool. You're gonna need also another cassette tool, but that's for holding the chain. I don't really know the exact name of this one. You're gonna need a torque wrench that can go up to 40 Newton meter this time. This is a 60, but at least 40. Then you're gonna need a 26mm socket. Next you're gonna need a pick set, some pliers, this brand new Sram connector, because every time you service your chain or you do something on your chain, it's way better to just put a new connector on there. You're also gonna need those little cable ending caps. You're gonna need a sort of grease. You might use the Sram butter, but I recommend a thicker grease, but that's the only one I have, so I'm gonna have to use it. Next, use a cleaning solution. I use the isopropyl alcohol where on places that have a lot of grease or oil on them. But for the chain or the cassette, I'm using whether this for the chain, that's a degreasant for the chain, or this, that's a multifunction degreaser. Next you have some WD-40. That's only to actually get the old grease out of the bearings and to put a drop of oil on some pivots. And last, you're gonna need some shop towels. So while our bike is in this position, we can do a quick chain check. And for this, you're gonna need your chain checker tool. So yeah, I'm gonna show you right now how this thing works. So how does this thing work is actually quite simple. See, there's a sort of gap in there that we can see some numbers through them. See, place your chain checker at 0. Then place it on the chain. So yeah, place it like this and push on that circular thing until it stops. So the number in there is 25, and 25 is quite low. If you get to 0.50, that's where things need some change, but 0.25 is a small difference, so it's not gonna affect anything on your bike. So that was how you pre-check your chain. So now let's get the chain off and start servicing our derailleur and our cassette. So the way you get your chain off the bike is really simple, especially with the Sram system, the Sram little pin lock system. So to lose the chain, you gotta pull this derailleur like this, and then the pin I'm talking about is right here. This little pin, you gotta push it and let the rest of the derailleur. So now the chain is loosened up. So the way you remove your chain is by using this tool. This is the tool that will take the connector and will snap it so it just falls apart. So first of all, you gotta find the connector on your chain. So the chain connector is the only chain link that is not as any of the other chain links. So the difference I can see is that, you know, a regular chain link, it makes a sort of 8 form, but the connector on one side, it's inwards, but on the other side, it's outwards, but on a normal link it's both of them are inwards. And don't worry, it's quite complicated, but you're gonna see it's the only chain link that is not the same as all of the others. On this particular one, even the color changes. All the chain is black, but this one is rainbow. So here it is, the chain link. As you can see, it's rainbow. And what I was talking about is that here it is inwards, but here it is outwards. On any other chain link, it's inwards here and inwards on the bottom. So the way you remove it is you take your tool, you place it just like this, and you just crush it. And here we go. We've just disassembled our chain. And be careful that those little connectors, they just slide off. And here we go, I've got my little connector. I will always recommend you changing that connector by a new one. Personally, I just heard that a lot from professionals, that you gotta change it every time you do a chain service or something like this. I don't have the reason why, but I know you gotta do it. So next step is to remove that derailleur. To get the derailleur off the bike, you're gonna need a 5mm Allen key and a T25 Torx wrench. So now unscrew that bolt that is attaching the derailleur to the frame. Here it is. It uses a 5mm Allen key. Just unscrew that one. So here you go, I've got the derailleur, but to completely unscrew it, as you can see, there's still the cable holding my derailleur, but to release the cable tension, you gotta use a T25 Torx wrench. Just insert it in this little hole, unscrew that, unscrew that. Not completely, you can just loosen that up. So here we go, guys. Now I have my derailleur with me, and we can start making a deep service. So now what we're gonna do is take those jockey wheels off, but I'm gonna start one by one. So for those, you're gonna need a 3mm Allen key. Just put that in here and unscrew them. Now you can just pre-clean it because that's so dirty. Just take a shop towel and just pre-clean it. So then it's not a great idea to use some isopropyl alcohol. It's better to use something more powerful. Like here I've got my degreaser, my WD-40 degreaser. I'm just gonna put some on the jockey wheel and just wipe it clean. So next step is to take those spacers off. Take them. Alright, so now that we've cleaned it properly, we gotta remove that little layer on the bearings and clean the inside of the bearings. So remove the old grease and put some new one. Here's how you do it. You put your pick on the inside here, and you just take that little layer. So how I like to clean them is to take my WD-40 and spray on them with a lot of force. And what that's gonna do is that, first of all, it's not gonna damage it, and second is that it's gonna push the grease out of there. Alright, so now we just gotta put some new grease in there. So I'm gonna use my Sram butter, but it's way better to use a thicker grease for this job. But I don't have it, so I'm gonna use my Sram butter. Place that in the bearing. Take your grease, put some on here, and then putting the first one, putting the other one, just like this. Now it should run smooth without any crunch. Alright, congratulations, we've just serviced one jockey wheel. Now there's the other. So now we're not gonna service the second jockey wheel, we're gonna remove that little silver color branch. So the way you do it is you take your 3mm Allen key, it's like if you would remove that jockey wheel, but we're gonna leave it. Yeah, well, now just clean it. But now you gotta clean this branch, this black branch, and also wipe the rest of the derailleur, just to make sure everything is fine. So next, you might think it's all, but there's still another wheel. It's actually the wheel that takes your cable and puts it in the right direction. So to unscrew that, you're gonna need actually 2 Allen keys of 3mm. I'm gonna use this one. This is the only I have. So place this one in here, and with the other, just unscrew that bolt in there. So now you have access to that sort of routing wheel. Yeah, just clean it as all of the others part. There's nothing special in there, just a piece of plastic. I cleaned the bolts that were in there. Now we are gonna assemble this back onto the derailleur and place it exactly as you took it off. Take your screw, put that in the left side. Take your sort of nut, grease it a little bit, and put that on the opposite way. And then you can start screwing it from both ways. So now we're gonna service the other jockey wheel. So I've already cleaned it a little bit, so take those caps off. Alright, next we're gonna go inside of the bearing. Take your pick. Alright, so now it's properly cleaned, and now I just gotta put some new grease in. Gotta clean those little layers, those spacers or caps, and then just assemble the whole thing. So putting some new grease in the bearings, right, then putting those layers. Alright, so on that small one it's written U, which stands for upper. So that's the upper jockey wheel if one time you do forget. On the other one there's an L, which stands for lower. Alright, so now it's time to assemble everything. So to assemble the upper one, so the small jockey wheel, you're gonna need that little bolt. There's one place where it's screws and one another that is just flat. On the flat, you're gonna need some grease. Where is the screw thing, you're gonna put a little bit of thread lock. And I'm also gonna put a tiny bit of thread lock. Really not a lot, just a tiny bit. Then you're gonna take your jockey wheel. Look where it says U. That's gonna point towards you. Then put the screw in here first. Then put the jockey wheel and take that silver piece and place it so everything matches together. Just like this. Now take your 3mm Allen key and screw that in. Alright, now I've tightened up all of those 2 jockey wheels. You don't have to tighten them a lot, like 3 to 5 Newton meters, something like this. So then what you gotta do is just wipe down all of that extra oil or grease that is on the derailleur. Alright, now we have serviced it and put everything back together. Okay, so now we gotta put everything back on the bike, but I still gotta clean the cassette. So now I'm just gonna remove the rear wheel from my bike, and I'm gonna show you how to get the cassette off the wheel. So now for this job you're gonna need 3 tools. The special cassette removal tools, the wrench, the 26mm wrench tool, and this tool that will allow you to get inside of the cassette and just to unscrew that. So now I'm gonna show you real quick how it's done, and I'm gonna do it on the floor because I don't think it's the best position right now I have. So yeah, you gotta take this tool and put that inside completely like this. Take your wrench, place that on the previous tool. So this tool you're gonna have to place it like this around it. Then you're gonna take your wrench and then you're gonna unscrew that anti-clockwise. You stand up like this on the floor. I don't know if you can see me, but you stand up like this on the floor. You take your tool and then you just push down, and this one you just push, well, also down to keep the tension. Just push both of them. Alright, here it goes. Okay, so I've actually tried to unscrew it with this wrench, but apparently it's not long enough. So I took my torque wrench, snapped a 26mm flat socket on it, and just unscrewed that. That was so much easier because it's really long. Actually, guys, really invest in this torque wrench with this socket kit, and the link to these tools is going to be down in the description. Alright, now we can just take that off. So here we go, guys. Now I've got that rear axle. These are the pins that are making the noise in your bike. Just go around and make sure they're all returning correctly. You can just remove completely that axle and get that little part off. So now what we're gonna do, we're not gonna do a deep service of this. We're just gonna clean that up. Alright, here we go. Most of the old grease is gone. Alright, here we go. Now we've cleaned it. Let's put some new grease on all of those pins all the way around here. It's always good for your bike to just get rid of that old grease and put some new one. Then we're gonna deal with the axle. Take your isopropyl alcohol, put some on there, wipe it clean. Now it's time to reassemble everything. Take that little part with the metallic ring on it, put some grease on the top and put the metallic ring, and put the metallic rings on the top, and take some grease, put some on this bushing and place that inside. Next you gotta take your grease, and now we're gonna deal with the axle. Put some grease on the axle. Axle is quite hungry with grease, so yeah, you can put a lot of it. Then slide it through the bottom, just like put some grease on the end right here, and also some inside. Then take your wheel. We gotta clean everything that is inside here. There's a lot of old grease. Look how black it is. I'm sure it was not black when people put that in there. Alright, that's it. Now from this side, place the axle. Now we've put that. Now we're gonna take that little screw. We're gonna place it on the other side, and we're just gonna screw that in. Alright, now it's screwed in. Alright, now this is perfect. So now let's clean up our cassette. So now to clean the cassette, you can use a normal degreaser, just like this one. But if you want to get some better results, I recommend you to use this one, the WD-40 chain degreaser. So now, yeah, just put some on here. Now just clean it. Alright, so now I've cleaned it, and actually I'm really happy with the result. It's actually, well, it's way better than it was before. Now the next step is to actually put everything back together, and then the step after that will be to put all the big stuff back on the bike, the wheel and the derailleur. So yeah, let's do it right now. To put the cassette back in, we're gonna have to grease. So grease this little hub, then take more grease and grease inside there. There are some threads, like those threads, they need to be greased. Then you're gonna take some grease and put some on those little threads, some vertical threads, and then align it. Alright, so now we're gonna use the same tool we used to remove, but now we're gonna use it to screw that in. But now the cool thing is that we don't have to use the chain removal special tool. We can just use a torque wrench with a 26mm socket. So the torque, the recommended torque for the cassette is at 40 Newton meters. So set your torque wrench to 40 Newton meters, and now you can screw that in without using the tool. Alright, perfect. 14 Newton meters. Alright, perfect. Now you've got your cassette back on the wheel. Isn't that amazing? And as I always tell, if you have the right tools, it's really easy. Guys, yeah, please invest in that torque wrench, that massive torque wrench. It saved me quite a few times. And in that socket kit, I really recommend that. There are also, like the socket you've just seen, they are flat, so they're also good for suspension work. So yeah, now is the time to put everything back on the bike. So now starting with the wheel, I don't think I have to explain to you how to put a wheel on the bike. So now the rear wheel is back on place. Now we're gonna have to put back the derailleur. And with the WD-40, you also gotta grease those little pins. like right here, those 4 little pins. You can't really access them, you can't unscrew them or something. They're just here to make this movement happen. So yeah, they're working quite a lot, and they're often forgotten to grease them. So yeah, you just have to grease them a little bit. Just put a drop of WD-40 on each of those, and then you're gonna be set. Now let's put that back onto place. Alright, so now you're gonna take your 5mm Allen key, and you're just gonna screw that in on the derailleur hanger. But before that, you're just gonna check your derailleur hanger if it's bent. It's just gonna be straightly aligned with the frame, with the wheels and everything. If it's bent a little bit, change your derailleur hanger. It often happens that it's bent. For me personally, it's not. But yeah, always do check that it's straight and aligned. So then screw in your derailleur. So now take the end of your cable, and this is the exact time to change your cable. If you feel like it doesn't shift right, even after all of your adjustments, it's probably time to change your cable. But personally, I'm not gonna do that because it's quite new. It's quite new. I haven't used it that much, so I'm sure it doesn't need any replacement. Alright, so now you gotta take this cable and place it in that little hole. Alright, so now you can see it better. It's gotta go into that little hole. Okay, so now you can clearly see where it goes. It goes into that little wheel, then it goes to the bottom right here, and it goes into that little hole, and then you're gonna crush it with a T25 Torx wrench. Alright, so now you gotta take your T25 Torx wrench and crush that cable. Alright, here we go. Now I've got my chain all cleaned, and now I'm gonna put that on the bike. Okay, so take one end, go all the way here. Then on those jockey wheels on this side, like right here on the upper, and then on the lower, you're gonna go inwards, just like this. And then you're gonna have to put them together with a connector. And as I already told you, you gotta use a new connector. So when we removed the chain, we actually used this tool and we crushed those two sides together. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull them away. Alright, here we go. Now we just gotta pull them away from each other. Here we go. Now it's set, as you can see, from both sides. Right, perfect. So yeah, thank you guys for staying till the end and watching this video. I hope you liked it, and see you in the next video, where I don't actually know what I'm gonna do. I have 3 things left. I have to install my new SRAM code RSC brake, which I'm gonna do some cable routing. I'm gonna bleed it. I'm also gonna shorten all of the holes. And yeah, that's gonna be great. Or I can do a service of my dropper post that needs a service. Or the third option is that I'm gonna do a service of my fork, which I'm quite excited about. I mean, all of my videos now, they're posted every 10 days. But the one with the fork will probably be a little more, maybe like 15 or 20 days, because it's not a simple job, it's a huge job. I'm also gonna change the air chamber in my suspension, so that's why it's gonna take a little bit longer than usual. Choose one of the 3 options down below in the comment section. But for now, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.